Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eliza Bleu podcast. My name is Eliza. I'm a survivor advocate for those affected by human trafficking, and I am also a survivor of human trafficking. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have a very, very special guest. I always say, everyone sleeps on Heidi. Do not sleep on Heidi. Let me give you a few reasons why. She's based, she's loyal, she has her own mind. And her story and just everything about her, I absolutely love her. She is hardworking. She's tenacious. It's very rare that you find someone these days, especially in the public sphere, that has very strong principles. And I find that Heidi is one of these people. I've had the opportunity to know Heidi for a little bit, and we've had an opportunity to know each other through some different phases in our journey. And today I welcome Heidi. Heidi, welcome to my podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, yeah, we've been through the thick of it, you might say, in certain areas. So I'm so happy. Yeah. There's been a lot.
I think one thing that's so interesting, and you can correct me at any point in this conversation if I get anything wrong. To my recollection, you and I met through politics. You were running for office. You actually had a really good race for a first timer. You didn't win, but it was narrow. And you and I really started connecting because you would reach out to me when you were running for office just to speak about human trafficking. And I was really grateful that you did that as someone in politics. I thought that was really cool. So at the time you were running as a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And your style, I can tell by your sheepish grin already. Mm-hmm. And what has changed for you and your political views since then?
Oh, gosh, so many things. I mean, to give a little context, I've kind of gone back and forth on being a Democrat. I've always considered myself somewhat to the left. But also independent as well. And so when I lived in California, I would typically vote Democrat, but I was declined to state because I felt more comfortable with that. And you can actually do that in California because they have open primaries. So since I ran for office, it was quite an enlightening experience. I would say that during my run was mostly positive. I mean, it was fun, it was great. I was associated with, the Yang Gang, Andrew Yang's movement, UBI. I was in that kind of tech UBI, space, kind of outsider space, running against an incumbent, a very strong incumbent. It was a difficult race, but I think that after the campaign ended, I sort of saw everyone's true colors. Very, very clearly, because I think that when you are in a group or an environment, you become so absorbed in it that you don't see things as they are. You see things as you need them to be for, you to be in that experience, and you are kind of blinded, almost rose-colored glasses in a sense. And then when you can step away and see things from the outside, or when you step away and you become a different person, maybe you grow, you decide that, you have your own ideas outside of this group that you've been existing in, things become very different. So I saw a lot of true colors out of, people that were, not really only my supporters, but, just kind of in the same circles, in the same Democratic circles. The second that I think Andrew Yang endorsed Biden officially during that race on CNN, really there was a shift in sort of my niche, or like my small group of the Democratic Party, into let's just be mainstream Democrats, and we're just going to support the mainstream candidate, just the establishment. And I was really quite shocked or perturbed. I really didn't see that coming for some reason. I guess I was just blinded, those rose-colored glasses, but it made no sense to me. I'm like, we were going for an outsider candidate, we're going for big ideas, problem solving, something different. And to just like turn and support something that's so old and so tired and that we're supposed to be fighting against, I thought that was just ludicrous. And I vocally stood up against that and said, I'm not going to support Joe Biden. I have never supported Joe Biden. I have a long history of not supporting his policies. Like, I haven't supported his policies since I'm in high school. I'm not going to do it now just because we have to get rid of Trump. I don't think that's that's not a real problem. The real problem is what's going on with the people. It's not about the figurehead. It's not about celebrity. It's not about this status. It's not about whose turn it is. I could care less about that. I want somebody that's going to solve problems. And I refuse to vote for that. And then that experience of them, just the people that I was friends with, was close to, just turning on me like that, for Joe Biden, somebody that doesn't care about them, when I'm somebody that does care about them and will fight for them. That was really just like enlightening to me, to be like sort of last straw, or that's sort of just my moment where it's like this party system, they don't care about you. I don't really care if it's Democrat or Republican. I think that if you turn on them, if you're part of the group and then you change, you turn on them, you leave the group, you leave the cult, whatever you want to call it, they'll turn on you so fast and the loyalty is gone and they'll come after you hard. So going through that whole experience was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with the Democratic Party. And I haven't looked back, and I feel amazing. I mean, I'm healthier, I'm happier, I can do what I want, I can say what I want. Like, I don't care. Like, it's great, because if they come after me, I'm like, that's cool, because like, I don't care about your opinion anymore, and it's so freeing. And it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that more people can experience that, just being free and being able to say what they want and not being scared or worried about your little in-group coming after you. So that's really the kind of message that I'm hoping to share with people, that they can be free and you can say what you want. And if you can't, then there's a much bigger problem going on than whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely agree, obviously. I mean, that's kind of my whole thing. I think one thing that I absolutely love about you and your presence is that I literally see you. You and I are similar in the way where you could see us talking to anybody from any circle at any time. And it's usually pretty cool. It's upbeat. There's usually like you usually have a jovial spirit, but it's hilarious. I'll be hanging out in my weird little pockets on Twitter, checking in, and I'll be like, oh, there's Heidi being cool. But I think that sort of came. I think I've seen this freedom happen for you after you left, because you got attacked pretty hardcore. It was almost like you didn't want to leave, but they sort of pushed you, which I actually think happens more than people think. Folks don't want to leave, but once you get pushed enough, you kind of don't have a choice. And then you look for folks that will accept you, that want to have nuanced conversations, that are kind of like, yeah, cool. As long as you're not trying to force stuff on me, we could talk. What did those attacks look like for you from different people online? What types of things were they saying?
Yeah, I think that, one thing that they were saying is that I was not a real Democrat, which is just kind of like, whatever. That was kind of like, I don't really care, because I don't know what that means. Like, what does it mean to be a real Democrat? Like, if anybody can define that for me, let me know. But so basically just supporting, I think, the party line no matter what. So I didn't really care about that. And then there were just kind of more vicious things. Just that I was a grifter, that I had taken, campaign contributions, and I had no intention of still remaining a Democrat, basically. So I was like just using, the Yang gang, assumingly is what they think, to boost my own personal brand and platform, which to this day, if I'm grifting, I'm really bad at it, because I'm not I'm not profitable. Like, let's just put it that way. Like, I've spent way more. And they acted like I raised some insane amount of money too. Yeah. And I think, you can look at it as public. I only raised like 25K. That is like literally nothing in a political campaign. And I was very grateful for it. I'm not saying it wasn't anything, because, a lot of people didn't have much money to give. And I'm so grateful for their $5, $10. That was amazing. And I remained grateful for it. And people were like, asking for their money back. And I'm like, money's gone. You know? Like no one's getting their $20 back. Like, I'm sorry, like that money doesn't exist. Like I put it to use. Like I have ads, I have proof of where the money went. I did not pay myself. I was still working full time. I paid like one employee because that's all I could afford. So there was that. There was sort of like the grifter vibe. And then there was more vicious things that I was, like whatever, a right winger or whatever that means to them, and sort of, I guess like I could be, some will label me transphobic, racist.
I was going
I
to
heard all
ask
kinds of
that.
things.
I was going to ask about the, I had never seen it. I have never seen. So just so that it's 100% clear, Heidi's a married lesbian woman,
Yeah.
happily married lesbian. How long have you and your wife been married?
3 years.
Yeah. And they're adorable together with cute cats. Shout out to Gus. Shout out to Gus, the cat Gus. But I had always wondered that if you had been labeled a TERF or things of that. I had never seen it. Mm-hmm. But
I was actually. I mean, they were digging, these people like dig, you know what they do. I mean, they like try to find like anything and they're obsessed with you. So they would literally watch anything that I would ever do, say, tweet, interview, anything. And so I went on my friend's podcast, my friend Andrew with Barrington, and we were just chatting it up. And Barrington wanted to talk about women's rights. And because he gets a lot, he's sort of done a similar thing or had a similar journey, I guess, to me. He's more on the right now than I am, I'd say, but he's, he has his lane. And so women's rights is something that comes up a lot with him and like his followers and supporters. They message him a lot about it. And he wanted to know what I thought as, a lesbian woman. And I thought what I said was very mild and, I didn't really say anything. I have nothing against, trans people at all. I have many, many trans friends, followers, supporters. They're awesome. Like I love everybody. I would never say anything about that. But he was talking about very specific instance of when, biological women, because that's what the framing that we had, when biological women feel threatened by those that are biological men. And we were talking in this very specific instance of like women only spaces. And I guess because I used the word biological women, that was turfy, that was transphobic. So there was that kind of a spin that I received, which is just very odd to me. Just as a woman who grew up being, gay, struggling with my sexuality, not sure if I was bi, gay, whatever, like hanging out in San Francisco, with the queer community. Literally, I lived in the Castro. Everybody around me was gay, like mostly gay men, but like tons of trans women and like tons of lesbians. And to be told like, oh, suddenly like I'm against like my own people or something, like it's just bizarre. Just very bizarre attacks from the left. They told me because I didn't have my pronouns in my profile. That was another thing. Not having my pronouns was an offense somehow. I'm not even sure, to trans people or to the gender community. I don't even know where that comes from. There was a lot of things that were kind of spinning me in the turfy way, because that's such a easy way to like for the left, I think, to attack someone. I think it's just so like everybody kind of understands this, like, oh, turf, bad, okay, let's attack them and get violent sometimes, or like be like very aggressive. So yeah, definitely that was an experience.
I have my complaints about the right. The right almost gets on my nerves as much as the left. Yeah. Listen, I want to throw that out there before I go in real quick.
Oh, for sure.
But the left has these standards that are constantly changing, these standards of unobtainable perfection. And people are constantly on the left trying to obtain this perfection that just simply doesn't exist. But what my experience is with, and they just try to hold people to the standard. I'm like, I can't, I'm not even, the thing with the left is I don't even try because I'll never be perfect enough. So why even try? I'm not going to pander to anybody. So, and I feel like you're the same way now. I don't think you were ever pandering, but I think you definitely got, I don't want to say red pilled because it sounds like conservative. You just, in the matrix sense, took the red pill, the veil came off, but one thing that and you could tell me if I'm correct in thinking this, it seems like lesbians, for the left were politically convenient and useful for a while, and then slowly getting shoved out of the conversation and the equation. And now, because lesbians are not as helpful to push whatever agenda it is that they're trying to push, they're demonized and pulled down. And that really bothers me, because women like you and other lesbians before did struggle very much to come forward, to, you know, to come out to their family, to come out to their community, to come out and work. It's difficult. And I noticed the same thing with feminists as well. The real, you know, feminists maybe that aren't lesbians, but I don't identify as a feminist. Do you identify as a feminist?
I do.
I mean, I kind of am just by proxy. Like I'm probably like, you know, I am by proxy. I have a feeling in the next year or so, I'll probably consider myself a feminist. I'm just not there yet. But how do you feel that way about
whether you consider yourself? I think that you are.
What'd you say?
I think whether you consider yourself one or not, I think that you are, because
I think I
you're
am
very pro woman. Yeah. And I think that's really what the root of it has always been, was to be, you know, let's think about women, because women were not thought about in that certain respect for so long. And so that was really the root of it. Of course, things get hijacked, you know, movements get hijacked. That's what happens in social movements. And feminism has been hijacked multiple times and gets hijacked all the time. And that's, I think, what makes it seem so weird or bad or like hateful or against men or all these different things, or against trans, whatever like the new thing is. It's so easy to pin that on women, and then feminism as like kind of a, you know, adjacent ideology.
So do you feel that lesbians have been left behind by the Democratic Party and anyone left of center?
Yes, always. It's almost, I mean, I remember, I have to look this up, but I believe it used to be GLBT, like gay was at the front of the acronym. And I remember like when it switched, like I kind of remember that vaguely, but it was almost like, okay, it was almost like a pandering thing. It was just sort of like, okay, because like lesbians have always been kind of left out and a fringe of the gay community. I mean, for better or for worse, it's just sort of how it's been. I mean, it's not necessarily anyone's to blame. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But the thing is that lesbians have been around forever. We've been kind of like in the shadows. We always are like doing the hard work kind of in the shadows and not taking a lot of, you know, fame from it. I mean, we're just not out there as much. We're literally at home, like with our cats. Like we're just like literally not out there. So we're not there, but we are there. We're doing like the hard work right behind the scenes. We're either being like activists, we're creating content, we're doing that type of thing, or we're doing like really critical things, like actually helping, you know, gay men during the AIDS crisis, you know, like actually being there and supporting them, because some of them had nobody else. They were, you know, left alone with their families, didn't want to be around them. Most of their friends were scared of them. And, you know, in many communities, like the lesbians were the ones that were there, literally taking care of them. So there's that. There's, you know, the fact that, yeah, growing up and, you know, there used to be lesbian bars. That used to be a thing. And it's so odd, because I felt like when I was like young, maybe like a teenager, I was like, oh, I can't wait till I can go to lesbian bars. And then I did. I mean, I lived it up. There was like definitely a time when I was like in WeHo all the time. I used to work at a girl bar, which was across from the Abbey. And I would promote for them and look super cute and have a great time and like meet all these girls. It was super fun, right? It was awesome. And I had a blast. I even went to like Korea. They had a gay lesbian bar in Korea called Pink Hole. Amazing bar. You go downstairs and it's like this huge basement with like these fluffy pink like beds down there, and it's all cozy, and like somebody's playing like amazing house music, and you're just like, this is the jam. Like I love this. And it was just all women, just beautiful. So I had that heyday. I certainly had like my, you know, young gay heyday. And then things started disappearing. Oddly, lesbian bars that had been around forever, the Lexington in San Francisco, very famous lesbian bar, been around forever. It was sanctuary for lesbians. That's pretty much the only thing that we had that was like public, were lesbian bars. Very important actually to the lesbian community. And they were women only spaces. That's how it was. And that's why we could feel safe. They started shutting down, very odd. Just started going away. The Lex shut down. People said it was finances. People said, they just can't support it. Like the gay men go out more. That was the whole thing. The gay men go out more. They spend more money. Lesbians don't spend as much money. They don't want to go out. And I'm like, is that really the case? Like, is that real? Like, I don't feel like, I feel like lesbians want to go out and we'll spend money whether we have it or not. Like if it's like, there's a bunch of girls there, so it was just very odd. And like, yeah, I feel like now you'd be hard pressed to find a lesbian bar. You can find them, oddly enough, only in like red states now, I think. We'll have like actual like dive lesbian bars that are like women only. I never saw any of this happening really. It's just like, this is really just in the last decade or so. And people have their theories. There's literally documentaries on this topic on why there's no lesbian bars anymore. Like people talk about this, it's a thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that we tend to get shoved to the side whenever there's a new kind of, something extra queer or more queer than what has been queer, then that kind of movement kind of pushes other things to the side because no, this is the priority now. And I get it. Sometimes you need to have priorities, like because we had gay marriage, that was a push, and then we got it. And now I felt like the LGBT community was just kind of like, now what? Like, what are we doing? We raise all this money. Like you have a group like HRC, all these groups that raise tons of money, they have to do something with it, right? Or they cease to exist. Like if we reach like equality, if it's like, all right, gay people, we're all cool with you, no one cares, then what are they going to do? They have to shut their doors, right? So I almost feel like it's like they're constantly trying to push it a little bit further to see like what else they can go for. And yeah, lesbians have traditionally gotten the shaft in many ways. We don't get as much credit. We're not out there as much. We tend to be more reserved. We tend to just want to either chill at home or in our lesbian bars. Now those don't exist. So it's hard. It's really difficult to find community. I mean, you can try to find it online, but it's bizarre to just like see these young kind of lesbians growing up. And it's like, okay, now you have basically equal rights. You can get married. Most people don't really care if you're gay now. You can just say it, like it's fine. No one cares. It's just, and that's great. That's beautiful. But then it's also like, now what? Like, where is your community and where do you go? And like, how do you find those women only safe spaces that you can be in? And I just feel like they're getting more and more slim.
Well, the only good news is that online is, you can access, back in the day, you couldn't talk to all these people online, or it was hard to find your place. Now you can pretty much find people easier, but I do wish that there was somewhere that lesbians could go to just feel safe. I hope that doesn't keep slipping through the cracks. I mean, I'm not a lesbian, but I want everyone to have a spot to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really do. Like whatever your thing is, you could just be into like, baseball card collecting. I want you to have a spot to go, I don't want anyone to be restricted, but especially for things like that, for young people, as it does pertain to human trafficking a little bit, because if young people are struggling to find their tribe, they're more prone to run away and, or in the worst cases, of course, get kicked out of the home. And, when someone under the age of 18 doesn't, they can't get a job, it's harder to get a job. You can't apply for housing, and you're more vulnerable to being exploited for labor or sex. So that's why these are things that go in my mind, like not necessarily that I would want someone under 18 going to a lesbian bar, but, I just think, it does kind of scare me a little bit that this is getting more and more refined, and it's difficult. I'm still figuring out what I think, because I am a woman. I love being a woman, and I don't want women to be erased. That's why I said I could see myself becoming a feminist in the next, like a full blown, like not like crazy or pushy, like I'll have the same energy. It'll be the same energy, but I'm like, dang, do I have to stand up for being a woman? again, you would think, like you said, we have fought so hard for this type of, to be recognized and to be taken seriously, and to vote and to work, it does kind of concern me. What do you think about, it's so funny because we've never talked about any of this stuff, but it's stuff I've always wanted to talk to you about. What do you think about the push for sexual identity or these types of conversations in school for young kids, grade school?
Yeah, that's difficult. It depends on the framework for it, because I've seen kind of both sides of it. I mean, I've definitely seen like the sort of evangelical, like Republican push to it that reminds me of the 90s, and I like cringe, and I'm like, oh, that's like so gross that like the teachers would be like calling the parents and being like, your kid's gay, like that whole thing, like don't say gay, that's going on. And I don't like that. I think that that's like horrendous. Like I think that kids need to, feel free to be themselves at school. Some of them only have school to be themselves. They might live in abusive households. They might even be homeless. Like there's all kinds of things where that could be their place where they can be themselves. So I think that that's horrendous. To out a teenager would be just like, just so horrible in so many ways. So I hate that. I don't think that it's bad for a teacher to be like if I'm a teacher and like, I taught in Asia, I taught in Taiwan and South Korea, I taught English. There in that culture, one of the first questions they ask you is, are you married? Luckily at the time I wasn't, so I could just say no. And like, and they'd be like, well, you need to get a husband and blah, blah, blah. They'd start saying and be like, okay. And it was just so not appropriate or on topic for me to like go down that road. So I never really would, just because I had a lot to teach them and I was busy. But if I were a teacher in the US and I had a class and I had like this class for the whole year and we're all the same culture, we're all speaking the same language, it'd be really difficult for me to not be like, yeah, I'm married to a woman, and I see nothing wrong with that. If anybody can talk about their spouse or their partner or their family, then everybody should be able to. I don't, I've seen some people say that, oh, you shouldn't even bring that up. You shouldn't even bring up like your sexuality. And I'm like, okay, you're right. Like you shouldn't bring up your sexuality. Like you shouldn't be like, talking about sex. Like obviously we can realize that that'd be gross and weird and creepy, but saying that you're gay is not talking about, the actual whatever. That's just saying that that's who your partner is, like just saying like I'm partnered up. It would be weird if you were like single though, I guess, and you were just talking about like going out on the weekends and like, people you were like hooking up with. That'd be super creepy and weird. But I think it's just common sense. Like we all know that, right? It's like there's a line.
No, we don't. Common sense. Well, listen, Heidi, common sense is that just as well as I do. Common sense is fully gone out the door. We are not in common sense land anymore. Right.
We are in like, anybody listening to your show probably understands what I'm saying.
Yes, hip people listen to my show, but I hope other people that need to wake up, just stumble on it, eventually, it's just so funny. I was like, I was thinking about who I wanted to have on as a guest. I was like, man, everybody sleeps on Heidi. You always have the best takes on everything. And I just love seeing you out here, and you're so freaking funny. I love that you don't take yourself too seriously, but I'm bouncing around and I apologize, but I did want to ask you. So since your Democratic exorcism, it was a little bit of an exorcism. Since your exorcism from the DNC, where have you found the most solace? Who's accepted you the most? Like, I guess online sort of, but wherever, who has really embraced you and where have you found a home?
I would say there's a couple places. I would say that there's sort of like the Tulsi crowd, I guess, like left, who tends to be more libertarian, I would say, anti-war, anti-mandate. That's been a huge thing that, I'm definitely on the side of. So I would say anybody that's sort of non-compliant, anti-authority, anti-authoritarianism, definitely libertarians as well. I don't consider myself like a full-fledged libertarian, and the way that they do, they're very strict about like who's a libertarian, who's not. So I learned that the hard way. That's like a
They
big like point
pretend
for
to be
them.
strict. They pretend to be strict, but libertarians are so desperate for a little bit of shine. They just kind of let anyone in. Like, don't let them fool you. Don't let them play you with they're just so, they're wrapped up in it, but they're desperate. They want that shine.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I always joke. I say like, well, maybe they're just nice to me right now because they're recruiting me. I'm like, I'm not fully in. Yeah, we'll see. But no, they're great people. I actually really love libertarians. So I definitely get along with a lot of them. Reed Coverdale is awesome. Comic Dave Smith is hilarious. So that kind of crowd, the Tower Pod gang, you know them. So they're awesome. They're super funny and fun, and they don't take themselves too seriously. So that's really cool for me. Yeah. And then there are still some, there's still some like more kind of independent leaning Democrats that I certainly get along with and have no issue with me. They're always been like independent minded. There's kind of like the hardcore, I guess like Yang gang in a way that are like still like, want UBI, want, these types of problem solving. Like still have like a crew there. That's awesome. And then just like people that aren't into politics is also like something that I love. I've been really into the Web3 space, tech. I work in tech, and I love crypto. Yeah, for sure. And like those people are awesome. I mean, most of them like are smart, they're sharp, their brains work like mine. I mean, I found out that most people in Web3 are like ADHD, like me. We're neurodiverse, we're neuroatypical, whatever you want to call it. So we kind of think the same, and we move fast through ideas, and we are okay with like being wrong and fixing it and all of this stuff that's like really just nice and refreshing when you're in politics, when it's like not okay to be wrong. You were wrong and that's horrible, and like you cannot be wrong, and we will screenshot that and show it to everybody forever, and like you were wrong one time, and that is it. It's just sort of the vibe that you get from more of a less political space where people are still being activists though, which is like dope to me. They're still like solving problems. There's these things called DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, that are solving real problems. They're building housing for people in places, and they're.
Can I tell you how much I love that type of stuff? I love that type of stuff out of that space. That's the energy. I just love it because I don't know, because I know that they're doing some good things for the world, or like lifting individuals or other projects. And, I hope that eventually that spills over into the into the anti-trafficking space, that maybe we can do something for survivors. This is in the back of my head at all times, but, I love that type of community. Amanda, my best friend, who is always telling me about the great stuff that the crypto community is doing. I think it shows that when I don't know how to explain it. I think it's a combination of young energy and people making a decent amount of money, in some cases, and really wanting to share it around and do it their own way in a decentralized way. I think that's super cool. I love that you're super NFT, right? I love that though. Just really quickly, for anyone that doesn't know what NFT is, can you explain it in a way that's easy to understand? If you can't,
that's the big question.
$1 million question.
If I can do it, I mean, I will. I should be a crypto billionaire if I could explain it and make people make sense of it. But I mean, it stands for non-fungible token, which probably means literally nothing to most people. So it doesn't help them at all. People look it up and they're like, I'm even more confused. And it's essentially, so in the crypto space, they have these things called blockchains. Bitcoin was sort of the founding, cryptocurrency, and there's a blockchain is essentially a ledger. You can kind of picture like a massive safe with a bunch of drawers, and each drawer is like a block, and it will log whatever happened in that block. So if I send you money, it would show it, we would verify that transaction in the block without going too deep into it, and you'd be able to see it publicly. And then what happened after Bitcoin was Ethereum was invented. And Ethereum is essentially putting a coding, so like computer coding, programming into each block. So with Bitcoin, you don't have that. You only have, it's very elegant, it's very simple. You only have the transaction, which is, a pro. It can be a pro and it can be a con if you're trying to do more with that, area. So what Ethereum did was made it so you can put actual computer language into that. So you can put more things into that block rather than just a simple transaction and what happened there. And so NFTs are one thing that coding language can put into that block. So not only will it show how much money you have or how much cryptocurrency you have or how much you've transferred or where it went or how you got it, just where it came from and all of that basic info. You can also program in assets that you own. And so an NFT, most people think of them as, you know, the cute little JPEGs and the pictures and art and that type of a thing is the most common conception of it. But you can put really ownership of anything into that code. And so the NFT is really showing that you own whatever that is. You have the ownership in the blockchain of, you know, whatever it is. It could be a picture, it could be, you know, a video, it could be writing, it could be a ticket, it could be whatever it is, and that proves that you own it. Which the idea with that is not only to just like flip them and make money, which is great because if you own the actual, you know, NFT, you own that, you can send that to somebody else and they can give you money for it or not. But you can transfer the ownership to whoever you like because you're the owner of it. But not only that, what's cool about it is that you can prove, you know, sort of, it's almost like membership. Like a lot of people don't understand that it's like membership into like a club almost. So like if you, for example, if Eliza created Eliza DAO or something, and I went and got one of your NFTs, and then I wanted to show that I'm in that DAO, I can prove it very easily because it's right there, public on the blockchain. And if you want to give me special privileges while I hold that, while that's mine, then you can. You can be like, great, you can come to my event. You can, you know, participate in this that we're doing. You're showing that, you know, you own it. And if you transfer to somebody else, okay, well, you don't have those benefits anymore, but great, somebody else does. So that's fine. And that's sort of, yeah, that's basically how I view it as is you can put any kind of thing that you want in there right now. JPEGs are what, you know, people are doing that because it's kind of easy. It's like they figured out that that's a way that they can use cryptocurrency to make money and to run projects and to, you know, kind of build these communities. And it's leading to really cool things. I mean, it seems very shallow, but it's actually leading to like solving real world problems and, you know, going deep into like, what can we do with these organizations when we have that bottom up structure where we all can just buy in at like a relatively small amount and then have this like vote that we can do to be like, oh, well, I think Eliza in Eliza DAO, you should support these, you know, victims or these survivors, these survivors over here in this area that are going through some things and they need help right now. And they can all vote for that. And even if that wasn't on your radar or something you were even thinking about, it's like, great. Like, because, you know, the DAO is running itself, essentially. They're making decisions based on the tokens or NFTs, if you will, that they own. And they can be voting, you know, rights, essentially. And if you own more, you get more voting rights. So many cool things that can come from that, from essentially like showing that you support a project, essentially, is how it is, or you support an artist, or you support a cause. So that's kind of how I look at it, is like your membership token, and you can have multiple if you want.
One thing that I love about that space is I feel like it's really making art. I think artists are having a great opportunity to showcase their art. And I'm hoping that this continues and that, you know, because there's a couple artists that are really rising to the top. I'm like, oh, this is cool. We needed an art scene. Real quick now on, as far as crypto goes, right now, when we're recording this, we are just coming pretty much, we're still a little bit in the thick of Canada going full blown, full-fledged, I don't, how would you say it, Heidi?
Fascist.
They went full blown. Let's see. Well, this, just so folks have an idea, today, just on the drive over here, I found out that the organizer of the Freedom Convoy is not going to get bail, not going to receive bail. But I mean, they're freezing they're freezing bank accounts. They threatened to freeze bank accounts of family members of those who were engaging in the protests. They froze donations. They've taken away vehicles. They're threatening to sell vehicles. I don't know if they've begun that process yet to sell vehicles, to, in their mind, pay for, I don't know what they're paying for. They threatened to take away pets. They threatened to take away kids. They used police force. what, a big thing when this has all been going on, especially as Americans, as we're looking on, people are like, this is why you need crypto, like, because they're not, because when the state comes for your asset, for your bank account, you're kind of screwed unless you have crypto. Um, what do you think about what's going on up in Canada right now?
It's horrible. I mean, my best friend actually is Canadian. I met her in Taiwan. Known her forever for 15 years. I always wanted to live in Canada. This is just so bizarre to me. Like I remember, every like kind of edgy like teenager in the 90s was like, I'd rather be Canadian because they were a little more progressive than us. They're more fun. Yeah, so it seemed cool. It's like, Canada, yeah, that's awesome. It seemed like a cool thing. And I remember when you would travel, if you were an American traveling and you would say you were Canadian, that was definitely a thing because you wouldn't get as much grief because people in general, and like especially in Europe, aren't too fond of Americans and, have bad foreign policy in a lot of areas that, rightfully they're not really stoked on us in a lot of places. So I remember that. So seeing them go this extremely fascist, authoritarian route is disturbing to say the least. Certainly not an expert on why that's happening, but I have some ideas. That there's some globalization going on. There's some powers that be kind of pushing certain people and certain agendas, and I think that that's somewhat part of what we're seeing in the last couple of years. But I think it's horrible. I think it's disturbing. It's awful. I mean, I was talking to my friend about it this morning, and she's just like, I want to move to America. Like I'm over it. Like and I'm like, I can see that, it's scary. And I think that crypto has the potential to be a solution. People need to be very educated on it, of course. They need to have custody of their coins. So they need to have self-custody if you have it on an exchange. I mean, Canada froze crypto assets as well that were still on an exchange. So essentially they're in custody of someone else. So if you go on Coinbase right now, I buy some Bitcoin or some Ethereum. That's not mine until I take that off of the exchange and I put that in my own wallet where I own the keys or seed phrase or password, whatever you want to call it. Then it becomes mine. Then even if I lose my wallet, lose my phone, lose anything, it's still mine. I can still access it. The government can't theoretically, touch it. There's some intricacies there that they possibly could in certain instances, but in general. So yeah, I think crypto could possibly be. The only issue with that is that thinking of how authoritarian a government can get and how far they can take it, they could take it as far as shutting the internet off. And then really the only thing you could do with crypto is pretty much Bitcoin. You wouldn't be able to verify the transaction, but being that Bitcoin doesn't necessarily require the internet to make a transaction, you can actually make a transaction offline. You just can't verify it yet, which is an important process. But when you were able to get back online, you could. Then that could be a solution if the internet was completely shut down. But other things like Ethereum and Ethereum-based blockchains, that could still be a massive issue where you wouldn't be able to actually send or do anything with your crypto if they shut the internet down. So very interesting things come up with that. I mean, immediately, I think Elon Musk can solve that with Starlink. That's like my first thought, is that if you have something that's autonomous that is bringing internet to people like Starlink, which could be set up that way. And I believe that's the route he's going in. I'm not an expert on that, but where, the government cannot shut it down because he can't even shut it down. Like that's like the goal is like, it's happening. And it's sort of like a one-time thing. Like he doesn't want anybody on a payment plan. You're not paying an ISP, any of that. Like you buy the Starlink system and you have internet and that's it. It's like a one-time deal, whatever it is, $3,000, whatever it is right now, he's going to get the cost down, but then that would be it. And the internet would be its own autonomous thing that exists and just floating in the sky and nobody could take it away. So that's exciting. I mean, I hope that that's the route that we're going in. So yeah, definitely crypto and educating yourself on Web3, I think is important as we move more and more into an authoritarian, state and mindset where people are just okay with this type of thing if it's somebody that they don't agree with. Very disturbing. I did not think I would see this go down this way in my lifetime, but if you look back, the signs were there and things have been going on for quite some time and they've been setting us up for this type of takeover and full control.
What do you think some of the signs were ahead of time?
Mm, definitely.
What was the moment when you realized, because you've been much closer to the left. I wasn't
Mhm.
really in that, like,
Yeah.
I never had time for it. Like, you know how I felt.
Yeah.
I just knew I would never be perfect enough. I was like, I can't play with you people. So, but I'm cool with the left. I'm just like, I don't, I don't know how to explain it. I just don't push
Yeah.
with them. But if they want to come around me, cool, and we'll be civil and everything's awesome. But for you, what was the moment? I mean, by the way, I'm not completely blaming the left for this nonsense either.
Right.
The right has had their hands. Like I said earlier on, they get on my nerves just about as dang much. But what was the moment for you where you were like, oh, okay, this isn't good?
I mean, honestly, really the moment was 9/11. I mean, if we want to go back, I mean, I was 18
Mm,
when that happened. I remember, just obviously everybody remembers that seeing it. And then the aftermath, I think, was the worst part. I mean, it was obviously a horrible tragedy, but the worst part was the aftermath and the things that they were able to accomplish and the civil liberties that we were able to lose post 9/11, I think is the largest tragedy in my view, because it still continues to this day. And the crazy thing is that the left at that time was very much against the Patriot Act, the obstruction of civil liberties, and that was my team. I mean, I started an ACLU chapter at my university. I was very pro civil liberties, and I was on the left. I would go and protest war all the time, and I was pretty radical in a certain way. I mean, and so to me, that was when I realized that we were heading down that path. And I thought that people on the left in general were aware of that. I thought that it was more like the right that was like more authoritarian and like, yeah, we got to go to war and like get those terrorists type of thing. That was like the vibe to me at that time. And then, things really shifted. I mean, I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened. I wish I could, but there's been a flippening, as they say in
well,
crypto.
I think the other funny thing, Heidi, is like, truthfully, I probably
Yeah.
like in my heart, like old school left, like because I'm, anti-war. I want everybody to be able to do kind of whatever, as long as you don't get into anybody's space. So like, go live your best life, like do you? And then, I'm very free speech. I don't want to censor. Like these are all things that, so I probably would have been more on the left, but the left moved. I stayed the
See,
same.
yeah, I see that. Like, I could definitely see you being like 90s left. Like,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
what
I
I
was
call it
90s
now.
left. I was
Yeah,
90s
that's
left, but not like Bill Clinton. Not Bill
no,
Clinton.
that was a shift for sure. Bill Clinton actually was a huge shift in the Democratic Party and the left. Actually, he got rid of a lot of regulations for the banks and financial regulations that were protecting us from some of this political system. So there's that for sure. There was also what I think. I mean, this is just kind of a random theory, but I'll let you know. What I think really is that they realized that the left was actually the way to go. Like that was actually like the route to take, like for authoritarianism.
Hmm.
And they realized it both from what they were seeing and also historically. When you look at things like Maoism in China and the Cultural Revolution and how the left was able to take over in that route, like basically have authoritarianism take over from the left. They realized that that was probably more effective, I think, and a better route to go than like a right authoritarian kind of thing. I just feel like left became so popular that they had a choice. They either had to like like basically give in and like basically give things that they wanted to, or like kind of basically take over and basically kind of shift it. And I think they kind of did both. I think they gave us little things, like they give us gay marriage, they give us like our late, not that's little, but they just give us like our little tidbits here and there. They give us like Obamacare, and I think that's like going to be different or something. They give us like a little bit, like I'm just talking like us as like being a lefty, like in the 90s. That's the kind of shift I started seeing in the 2000s. They just want to give us a little bit, but then really in reality, they were co-opting. I think since Bill Clinton is the major time when they started realizing that they should co-opt the left and make the left neoliberal, basically make the left pro-war, make the left pro-business, make the left pro-corporate, and all of these
Big
things.
Big pharma.
Yeah, all of this. And then use fear. Then they realized during 9/11, they can use fear and everybody will jump on board. They were like, oh, well, fear is like great. You know, we can use fear. And, you know, you have that. And then it's like basically everybody at that time, unless you were really, I guess, knowledgeable, was like, no, like, I don't want this Patriot Act crap. I don't want, I mean, I'm sorry, like the people basically, they were okay with it at that very moment because either they were ignorant to the fact or they just were like, I'm scared. So these things kind of slipped through without us really realizing it because we were in a state of emergency. You see that happening now again, right? Do you remember like being in a state of emergency where it was like red zone, orange?
Yes.
Yes. And we were like over in the red emergency now. We're like, oh my gosh, like red emergency, like terrorism everywhere. And you would like go to the airport and there'd be full on like, you know, National Guard or like military, like full on at the airport and everything was terrifying. And I think that they realize that's a great way, you know, to use fear to push these things through and that people will go with it for a period of time. But with terrorism, too short of a period of time, right? It's like, that's like, okay, an act happened, unless there's consistent like terrorism happening constantly, you can't just keep people in that state. Like,
I mean, a lot of the terrorists that popped up after were, don't get me started on that. My program goes on YouTube, so I gotta keep my tinfoil hat. I gotta leave my tinfoil hat. No, I mean, the Fed, you know, all these terrorist things have to do with don't get me started. It's always the Feds. The Feds are at the crux of everything, and I'll just leave that there.
Right. So I think that, but just to end that thought, like I believe that now, like being in a state of fear for 2 years, you know, being in a pandemic, I think that they're taking their whatever, they're just taking their wins. They're trying to push as far as they can, and take whatever they can take because that's human nature. When you're in power and you see an in, you exploit it, right? It's how we work. I wish we didn't, but it's how we work. When we have a lot of power and authority, people exploit that power and authority. And that's what I want to try to fight against. You know, I want more people. It's always what I want, is more people at the bottom to realize their power and to be able to make that change, because we are always more powerful than we think. We're always more powerful if we can work together. We're always more powerful than any authority who knows really nothing about anything or our lives. And they're elitists. I mean, they don't know about us. So I think we're always more powerful than that. So whatever I do, whether it's Web3 or politics, that's always what I'm pushing for, is like people to realize their personal power, take advantage of it, and do anything you can, because you have so much more power than you think. And we can always stand up and say, no, like that is it. Like that's the point where I'm like, that we're done and we're taking this back. And so I hope that that's the direction people are waking up to. And I think that's why they're going so hard. I think they're so scared because we are waking up to this and they just want to go harder, you know, and just like push as far as they can while they have a chance.
I love that you said all that. I think that's awesome. That's one of the things I freaking love about you, Heidi, is that you could have fully gone super hard and pandered. You had the base. I mean, you're out here on Twitter, you're verified. You had a full left base. Like I was probably like the furthest to the right. And I'm just like, whatever. I don't, you know, but that followed you. But you were like, nah, I'm not going to pander. I'm going to be free. I'm going to be free. And I feel like when I look at you, I'm like, this is a free woman. That's how I feel. You might not always feel that way, but I love that your mind is so free. And I think that's awesome. So last question, are you still living in Portland?
Oh yeah. I actually moved more Portland. I actually moved into a different district. I was living in the suburbs and I moved even more Portland. I got more Portland. I love it. Portland's beautiful. Oh yeah. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
But because I know you'll give me the truth, how the hell is Portland? because I see the videos. I see the videos, you know, we saw everything happen, you know, back when there was a chop at Chaz but I mean, I see other videos too, you know. Is it good, bad, or ugly, or somewhere in between all three?
It's very weird. Portland is a very magical place where, you know, you can get like brunch delivered with Bloody Marys and mimosas and, you know, and like they'll just deliver to your door and then they'll bring you weed, you know, 30 minutes later, and that's all fine. That's all legal and good. And everybody's having a good time. And then you kind of walk outside and there's, you know, poverty, living on the streets, needles, drugs, filth, you know, just destitute individuals, desperate people, you know, addiction in your face. Yeah, there's that. There's also like a, you know, very radical, you know, factions both on the left and right that decide to just meet up. I don't know why, but they decide to meet up like in Portland and literally fight each other and like beat each other up and shoot each other like on the streets. And that's just okay. Like everybody just pretends that that's not happening. Portland's very like passive aggressive and like this wouldn't fly like really in a lot of places, I don't think. I mean, there's certainly homelessness, other places, there's, you know, people that are unhoused, there's a lot going on, but I just think the way that we deal with it is like people really think that Portland is a big city because of the things that they see, and it's not. Portland's actually a smaller city, like it's like medium sized. I mean, you shouldn't see this type of a thing. Like there is a deeper problem going on here. And so to me, it's almost like, because there's a street there's a lot of them, but there's one street that we go and get like food. It's kind of near here. It's Hawthorne. And if you go over there, it's very hipster. Like all the restaurants are like awesome, like freaking dope. And like, you know, the hipster coffee places, you know, with like the amazing espresso drinks, and it's all perfect, right? But literally right there is a whole tent city, you know, and it's just you just park, like we pulled in, we parked in a parking lot, and you just see, yeah, I mean, that's where people are living. I mean, it's like all their stuff, it's completely dirty. Nobody is like cleaning up or doing anything or even touching it. And then you go walk over and you get like a $20 like sandwich or something, or like, it's just, and then I'm just thinking like, this is crazy. This is almost like, yeah, because that they used to say the dream of the 90s is alive in Portland. It's like that song, the like cute thing. And people are like, oh, it's so amazing. You can like rollerblade and do whatever you want and be a kid forever. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a problem being a kid forever because you don't deal with your shit, right? And so it's kind of like that. It's like we all kind of millennials in a way, mostly millennials at this point, like in, you know, the workforce and making money. We kind of grew up. We can have fancy toys now. We want our, you know, mimosas and stuff. We want our brunch. We want to be able to go out and get our fancy espresso drinks, right? We need it. We want it. We got to have it. So we'll pay for it, whatever it is. But also, yes, homelessness is a problem, but we're just gonna not see it. We're just gonna ignore it. And you see it. People walk by, don't eat, like it doesn't even register anymore because you're just like so used to it. It's like we're not gonna deal with our mess. You know, it's almost like a spoiled kid where it's like you're getting everything that you want, but you're not dealing with your mess. You go home and your room's a mess, you know, and your parents are like, yo, clean up your mess. And you're like, nah, I'd rather go to brunch. It's really that kind of a thing where it's like, you know, we're not going to deal with that because we're not like mean people that like basically are going to tell them they have to go or something. Like that's what they think is like, so we're so progressive and we're so sweet and we're so nice that we're going to allow people that, you know, have problems that we need to help them with just live, you know, on the street because we don't want to kick them out. Because we don't want to be the people that kick those people out because that's not nice. And, you know, I mean, in a way, I kind of understand what they're saying, but then in another respect, you're not doing anybody any favors. It's like you're not doing yourself any favors when you don't clean your room, right? You're not doing them any favors by not helping them out and figuring out what is going on. What is the root cause? Like, do you need mental health assistance? Do you need, you know, medical treatment? Definitely. Do you need addiction treatment? Like all of these things, like we are just kind of being like, yeah, but, you know, then we have to face that and deal with it. So I'm not going to clean my room, you know? So that's kind of like the vibe that I get. It's like, it's an amazing place. It's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. I mean, it's like, it's clean, fabulous. Like there's berries and trees that you can just pick like on the street. Like just beautiful place, and amazing stuff that you can do here that you can't do anywhere else. I mean, there's record stores that you haven't seen since the 90s, all this amazing stuff, but we're also spoiled children that don't clean up our mess in another respect too, because we don't want to be mean, or we don't want to be seen as like racist or whatever is going on at the moment.
Whatever.
So, yeah, it's just like it's kind of just the extremism. It's sort of like seeing like, oh, okay, like you want this thing, like you're like a lefty kind of teenager in the 90s. That's like kind of me, like Heidi growing up, and you want this thing, you want like, yeah, I want gay marriage to be legal, and I want to be able to like skateboard until I'm 40 or 50 if I want, or beyond, and I want to be able to, do all this stuff and like just have fun and be a kid forever. And then you don't realize like, oh, there could be like a cost to that. Like, there's going to be some cost to like you pushing that fully to the level. And I think that's what we're seeing is just we pushed it to that point, and we have to deal with a big mess now.
It's interesting. I think you're right. I also think you're right. I think you're right. I think a lot of it too has to come from just, that's a whole other conversation, like, like, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's our generation was a little more spoiled, just as a whole. I'm talking like completely the entire country. If you went to averages, a little more spoiled, and, it gave us the wrong impression of how to conduct ourselves. It's so funny, Heidi, about once a day, I look around and I'm like, God, I'm the adult in the room now. You know what I mean? That terrifies me because I still have purple hair, and like the biggest priority in my life is, well, okay, which eyelashes am I going to wear today? So, that terrifies me, because if I'm the adult in the room and I'm like, oh my gosh, which eyelashes am I going to wear today? But,
they made it seem like it was easy. I mean, most of us were raised by boomers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they made it seem like it was easy because it was easy for them, in a lot of respects. Like the economy was booming. That's why they're the boomers.
Yeah.
They're not just the baby boomers, they're the economy boomers. I mean, they had a lot of stuff going for them. I mean, post-war, like economy boom. And there was also like the transition into a different monetary system, and so much money was flowing at that time to really get the economy up. And so I think that, essentially they thought it would be as easy for us. And then we found out it wasn't, right?
No, it's not easy, but we'll get there. I am very hopeful for the future. I think what's going on right now in the world is scary. What's going on in Canada is scary. What's going on in the United States is scary. But honestly, Heidi, I have such a big hope for the future. I think enough people like you and me are out here, and we're like, okay, whatever in the hell just happened in Canada, we're not going to do that here in the United States. I think that I actually have so much hope, Heidi. I feel like we needed to do a little spring cleaning, needed to get bad before it gets better. So I'm so grateful that people like you are out there speaking common sense, willing to have nuanced conversation, willing to talk to whomever, whenever, as long as it's civil. I've seen you go like step in the hornet's nest. It's wild, but you're just trying to have an honest conversation. I've seen people react to you in ways that are disingenuous. Even people that I think I'm not going to call any names because that's not that type of podcast yet. But I just really admire your strength. So where can people follow you and keep up with what you have going on? And do you have any projects you want to shout out or anything like that before we go?
Yeah, I would say right now you can follow me on Twitter. Obviously, that's probably the most entertaining at this very moment. So it's just Heidi Briones, at Heidi Briones. And
spell it out for people so they know.
HeidiBriones. So you can certainly find me there. If you want a little more background on me, you can look at my interviews from when I ran for office. You just kind of want to know my political vibe, at least at the time. I certainly am writing stuff. I'm kind of just in the lab right now, putting some things together as far as articles, but I do have a website. It's HeidiBriones.com. I do have one article from basically my experience running for office, if you'd like, to that blog, if you want to get emailed when I do update it. And beyond that, you can always reach out to me, directly. I am working on some Web3 projects. Some of them are kind of in the background right now. I'm really trying to do some work. I'm really trying to do the work before I kind of talk about it now more.
That's big.
So,
That's something to learn, right?
right.
That's the most important. Like, I'll have big stuff coming up. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx it. And I just want to let the work speak for itself. So I get that. I get that.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm sort of in a hermit phase. I'm kind of in the hermit building in the lab, whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm doing. I'm working on some stuff in the background, but I'm certainly available. I'm certainly accessible. Definitely on Twitter. Reach out to me if anytime you want. I mean, follow me. If you let me know you heard me on Eliza, I'll follow you back for sure. So tag me, and I'm happy to have a conversation. And basically, I'm just trying to connect. I really want to educate people on Web3, and I'm doing it on a one-to-one basis right now, while I kind of build together like some materials and resources that I think are useful and that help me from my perspective, because so many things are very male oriented in the space, which is not bad. They're very logical and they're very intelligent guys building this stuff, and they're all great. But I think that we need a little bit more of a female perspective. So I'm trying to work on that with some other great women in the space. There's tons of amazing women, and we're really trying to put together resources for women. I do Twitter spaces, so keep an eye on Twitter if you want to actually talk and interact with me. I also will host Twitter spaces for people. I'm especially interested in people that have like a smaller following, but have a really great message. I'm happy to host for you and just chill in the background and keep everything civil and moderate, and just basically give you a platform and give you a voice if you want one. Just reach out to me with what you're doing, and if I'm with it, then let's do it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm a bit in hermit mode, but certainly you'll see more of me in the future, and I'm just honored to be able to be here with Eliza. And you guys are all amazing. If you follow Eliza and you're watching her podcast, then you're my people.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm so glad you came. Like I started off this podcast, do not sleep on Heidi. I'm telling you, I don't know I never know what's coming next. All I know is you just do not want to sleep on Heidi. One of the best follows on Twitter. So make sure you give her a follow. Thank you so much again, Heidi, for joining me. I freaking love this. Hopefully we can have you back, maybe unpack some more things a little bit deeper, but I just wanted to introduce people to you because I'm like, dang, yeah, people are asleep on Heidi. We got to get this going. So for anyone that doesn't follow me on Twitter, if you're just running across this podcast randomly, you can follow me on Twitter at Eliza Bleu, ELIZABLEU, and also my locals community, eliza.locals.com. That's eliza.locals.com. That's basically what I'm using to fund this podcast for now. So please think about throwing me a couple bucks through locals. My Twitter tip jar is open. You can throw me a couple bucks through there. If not, just, like, follow, subscribe, do the whole deal. Everybody knows what it is. You do not want to miss an episode. I have the dopest guests coming up. I can't believe the guests I have coming up, and each one is so cool. Heidi, you're one of those people. I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no, thank you. It's been amazing just to reconnect with you. And so I look forward to seeing what you're doing coming up. Thank you so much.
Who knows where we're going next? To the moon.
Let's go all the way.
Let's go to the moon. Don't sleep on it. We're going to the moon.